College football players on the move. Therefore, we are on the move as well right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you being here. And our daily update is on the move with Leanne Herring. Leanne, how you doing?
Doing good. We don't have a lot of time and a lot of time to update, but like we were talking about before we got on air, Mark, a lot of what we see, the portal, even though it's been open since Wednesday, things are kind of settling down. So a lot of the focus on today's show is kind of we have a few key commitments. We have a lot of our top guys going on visits this weekend. So there's not really a lot about to talk about. We have some new guys coming into the portal, but I think the focus will be for our weekend shows because we have a lot of our top guys who are merging who are going to be headed into their visits this weekend. So we'll definitely have a lot more information on the Saturday and Sunday show. But I think today it's kind of that transition day where we're going to talk about a lot of guys whose names that we've like Bear Alexander, a couple of new guys who are really emerging, and then of course a couple commits.
Yeah. So in terms of commits, I know that you have your eye on somebody who's transferred from Arkansas to Ole Miss in particular.
Yes, of course. For all you Rebels that are excited about, of course, it comes after our Wednesday live show. But Patrick Kutas is a kid, an offensive lineman. If you guys have heard the show, if you've heard me talk about it, I said that this was one of the key positions that I believe that the Rebels were going to go after, especially from the transfer portal. And bang, bing, bang, boom, we have our first commit. Kutas was on campus the past couple of days. We heard that obviously the visit really well. When you hear about those things though in the time of a transfer portal where you have so many colleges coming at these kids at one time, it's not always a green light or a slam dunk. But in the case of Patrick Kutas, I think from the beginning we had a really good relationship with him. Clearly, with these visits, it went really well, and it convinced him enough that he was going to be an Ole Miss Rebel. Yes. So this morning, Patrick Kutas from Arkansas, another big get as far as the offensive line. Was concerned for the Rebels. 6'5", 315, has been one of the primary starters over for the Hogs down in Fayetteville. So I think he will be a great component to continue to build this offensive line. I don't believe that the Rebels are quite done as far as getting the offensive line, especially our interior line. I think that's going to be a Nick's thing. A big key component, but it's a good day for the Ole Miss Rebels being able to start off the day with the commit from Patrick Kutas off of Arkansas. And I think it was really interesting because, Arkansas, there's always been that interesting take between when the Rebels head to Arkansas. We've talked about it on the show. It's always been a really difficult atmosphere to play. But I was looking through some of, the social media and on X the other day, and I thought it gave me a little bit of a chuckle, Mark, because there was an Arkansas fan who was talking about transfer portal, and he was basically joking and alluding to the fact that Arkansas seems to be coming the farm club, the farm team, as far as being able to get Ole Miss Rebels there. So I thought that was a little bit interesting how he was kind of jokingly saying how Arkansas has been kind of a farm team for trading Hogs to Rebels.
As we see right here at the top of the 247 Sports Transfer Portal feed, just here in the last half hour, Texas has landed a Utah punter in Jack Boomeister, who originally signed at Michigan State, and he's basically been the all Pac-12 and all Big 12 punter the last couple of years. So he's one of the best punters in the nation, and he's going to Texas. Now, our buddy in the chat here, John, is pointing out Billy Edwards, starting quarterback at Maryland, that he may land at Michigan. I've seen that as a bridge to, of course, Bryce Underwood, number one quarterback in the country, who may not be ready to go in 2025. But Billy Edwards also with a visit this weekend to Wisconsin. I see that popping up.
Yeah, this weekend. I think this weekend we'll get a lot. By Sunday, I think Sunday will be a really kind of booming show. I'm not necessarily saying we're going to get commitments, but I think right now we see a lot of these major top guys at different positions making their visits. They kind of settle down. So I believe that Friday and Saturday will be, full of visits and everything. So I wouldn't be surprised that on Sunday we have a lot of big commits, or you might see some guys waiting it out because again, there's so many moving parts when it comes to the transfer portal. And some of the guys I've been talking to, some of them are like, we're ready to commit, after these couple visits. They kind of know where they want to go. They kind of know what programs that them have shown interest. And it's been a mutual kind of thing. And then I've talked with some other high profile recruits in the transfer portal and saying, this is maybe our second time in the portal, or there's a lot of other factors, and we're not trying to rush the process. But I think that this is really the first weekend where we're really going to see where some of the bigger movers and shakers that we've been talking about, Mark, are really going to kind of decipher: are we going to commit here and now after these visits? Or are we going to continue to extend our visits? So this is a really big weekend, I think, as far as the transfer portal, as far as where we're going to see where the movement is where it is going. But a lot of there's a lot of teams right now in the mix. Obviously, we see a lot of players trying to find their next home. But again, I think one of the biggest storylines as far as the recruitment to watch, a team that's got a lot of momentum, and we kind of mentioned him that team here, is Colorado. Colorado has a lot of big guys, of course, big names coming in this weekend. Caleb Odom, a wide receiver, that a lot of schools have been after. He will be attending Colorado. We mentioned it yesterday on the show, and we have some of the rising stars that are also going to be at Colorado this weekend. So another time, it's going to be another big weekend for Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, this weekend. So like I said, this weekend I think is really kind of the first weekend in the portal that we'll really see a lot more movement as far as possible commitments, and possibly some of these transfers narrowing down their list of suitors.
So there's a couple guys that I saw who have reportedly committed. I wanted to hit on here. So Oklahoma wide receiver transfer Brennan Thompson. So he's an original Texas signee who was with the Longhorns, went to Oklahoma, really hasn't done much on the field, but he's currently expected, according to 247, to land at Mississippi State. And then we also had an all-purpose back who's headed to Rutgers that I saw. There's the Patrick Kutas transfer from Arkansas to Ole Miss. Here we go. So this guy right here, Florida Atlantic running back, CJ Campbell, his numbers are pretty impressive. He had about 800 to 900 rushing yards this past year, figures into the passing game. And apparently he is headed to Rutgers. So
that's a great get for Rutgers. That's a great get for Rutgers. And I think especially with the running back position, like we said, we've talked about Flood Badwell and, the Ahmad Hardy, who visited Ole Miss recently. Those are two kind of the top guy priorities. And I, as far as the running back position, we're going to see a lot of the high commodity guys that are at the running back position come from these kind of schools. But like I said, it's going to be a big weekend as far as, things have kind of settled down. One of the names that I thought I definitely mentioned, because we've kind of given Dabo Swinney the pudge for not using the portal, but surprisingly, a guy that we've talked about who's been really in kind of high rotation, high demand is Purdue edge. Despite the season that Purdue has, they have a lot of guys on the board that could go really high in this transfer draft. And I call it a draft because it seems like it's like that. It seems more and more we're talking more like NFL versus college. But Will Helt, he's ranked the number 45 overall prospect in the transfer portal and the number 7 edge in the country. He's set to visit Clemson within the coming days. So that was really interesting. I thought that was a really interesting tidbit, that I think that Dabo Swinney might take a little bit of chance, as much as he's been I wouldn't say against the portal, but he felt like he hasn't had to base his program solely on a portal. So I think that was an interesting read that I read this morning, how Will Helt's going to, a really highly coveted edge is going to take that visit to Clemson. And also, of course, LSU, Texas A&M are very much in the mix. Those are also two programs that really have had a lot of momentum in this transfer portal, and we haven't really hit on it, but LSU and Auburn, they've always gone, to the portal, but it seems like LSU and Auburn, especially in the SEC, those are two schools, Mark, that have really stood out to me this season, that have really hit the portal a lot heavier than normal, despite signing some pretty significant guys in their high school class as far as 4-star and 5-star. And it makes me wonder, is there a big push outside of the, especially at Auburn, Hugh Freeze, and then of course, obviously at LSU, is there a big push to hit the portal because of, the head coaching situation and how things maybe haven't transpired in the way that, the Auburn fan base, the LSU fan base wanted the postseason to go. So those are kind of interesting factors. I think, like I said, this weekend will be a tell all weekend as far as visits. And we'll see a lot of our big guys moving. There was a couple guys that I did want to mention that we need to be looking at as far as, I would say, the hot tickets as far as the last 24 hours. I'm sure we'll have more this weekend. We've talked about Arizona. Arizona is not a team, obviously, that you would think, but remember, this is a transfer portal. So a lot of the guys that are going to be the hot commodities, the hot tickets, are not the names They're not the Jaham Otises. They're not the William Nanaris who committed to Nebraska. They're not they're not all these guys that we've heard about that are traditionally 4 and 5 stars. There's a kid that I want to talk about, a corner, Emmanuel Carney out of Arizona. Of course, there's been a lot of talk about his teammate Takario Davis, but like I said, he's Emmanuel Carney is a very talented corner. I think he's ranked the number overall 6. He's the guy that you need to be watching. I think he's going to be a very hot commodity within the next coming days. I wouldn't be surprised after some of the places that he's visiting that he would commit, but I think that he's a kid we definitely have to look at. But right now, from what I'm hearing, Miami is he's a very high priority for Miami. And I think he would make a great mix when you look at his tape. Very shifty kind of quarters, got a lot of great speed, amazing on coverage. And he's also expected to visit the Canes this week. So that's a kid for out of Arizona that I've watched within the 24 hours. He's really emerging. Of course, we've talked about QBs. Caden Salter out of Liberty. He's another high commodity QB. We know that as far as QBs are concerned, there's a lot of teams, Mark, that are looking not necessarily to get their starting guy, but we've seen in this day and age how important it is to get a solid backup quarterback or another quarterback to create competition. Caden Salter is another guy from Liberty who's really been moving up the ranks. And of course, it should become as no surprise that he's going to be heading to Colorado Monday and Tuesday. Like I said, Deion Sanders talks about his way and his approaching of recruiting. He's not necessarily the guy to go out there, and to go get guys. He believes more in them coming to him, and it's really showing. Colorado is definitely one of the teams to be watching this weekend because there might be a lot of big guys signing. It's gonna be a popping weekend. Deion Sanders definitely cooking up something in Colorado. He's another guy to watch. Like I said, Caden Salter, QB Liberty, obviously with Deion's son leaving, Shadar Sanders, Travis Hunter leaving. There's a lot of emerging candidates. Colorado seems to have no problem as far as the NIL because what we've mentioned, like the last couple of days, Jaham Otis, Caleb Odom, a lot of big ticketed guys that we know have their eyes set and are set to visit Colorado. So Colorado will definitely be a school to watch this weekend overall as far as the portal and the commitments.
And just to recap the commitments before we take off for the day, this is the 247 Sports list for today. So these are simply today's commitments. We talked about Brennan Thompson, highly recruited wide receiver that went to Texas initially, on to Oklahoma, didn't get on the field. Mississippi State is his destination. Nair Jackson, offensive tackle, going from Texas Tech to Louisville. We've got Doug Blue Eli. He's an offensive lineman, or on the defensive side, from USF to Rutgers. So Rutgers with a couple nice pickups today. We talked about the running back going there as well. Dallas Fincher's an interior offensive lineman, 6'4", 300 plus, moving from Michigan State to San Diego State and on down the line. And again, I think really the biggest pickup of the day is the FAU running back, CJ Campbell, who has found a home with Rutgers. But
like you said,
started off the top, not a lot of big movement today, but
Yeah, not a lot,
one's a
lot of
visit.
big movement. I think because Friday everyone's kind of set their visits. I think the weekend will definitely have a lot to report on the Sunday show because I feel like after these kind of visits, Colorado is definitely going to be a team to watch. With all the big power players and rising stars that they see. One more name before we get off here, Mark, that I think is going to be one to watch over the weekend. Um, Tulane defensive lineman Parker Peterson. He's ranked as the number 90 overall guy, number 9 defensive lineman. Like we said, and like I've said over and over again, as much as you want to go out and get strong QBs, running backs, wide receivers, you can't get it done without the big guys up front. And they're far few in between. But I think the defensive linemen are really going to make a showing in this quarter. So he's one to watch that I really like. He's a 6'4", 301, had 21 tackles, 2.5 sacks this season. I mean, he's one of the top interior defensive linemen that I think out of the American Athletic Conference. We've seen Tulane really built this really strong program as far as football is concerned. So I think some of the early schools, of course, that are looking at him, Rutgers, naturally, Notre Dame, Auburn, Indiana, Wisconsin. So he's got a lot of early momentum going on. But I would say that Auburn and Rutgers would be two teams to watch out for him. But Parker Peterson, I think he's going to have a high stock coming into this weekend, but I really like what he's going to do. Very strong, very physical, interior defensive lineman. So I expect him over the weekend. He's already gained a lot of momentum. He's another on the rise kind of player that I think we should watch. And like I said, don't be surprised if Colorado gets in the mix. It's going to be a big weekend. Schools to watch: Colorado this weekend. I feel like Auburn and some of the other SEC schools. Rutgers has already had a big day. So like I said, I think right now it's Friday. It's kind of that transition period. We'll have a lot of movement and we'll be able to bring a lot more come Saturday evening and Sunday when these kids start making their visits. But like I said, it's going to be a big weekend, it looks like, for Colorado overall as far as the recruits and people that they're going to host.
One more note, since you brought up Tulane, and I was looking to track this one down. So Mikey Keene, pretty accomplished quarterback at Fresno State and UCF. And just to show you the merry-go-round of, especially at the quarterback position, where Duke's Malik Murphy enters the portal. Duke goes out and gets Tulane's quarterback, Mensah. He moves on to Duke. Tulane's got an open spot. You see Mikey Keene, who was formerly at Fresno State, was the UCF starting quarterback this past year before he got unseated. And now he looks to be visiting Tulane. So the cycle continues.
It does continue. It's like you mentioned when we were talking about, during our regular show, how the cycle of, especially in the SEC, one team beats the other team. I feel like that's exactly what we're talking about in the portal. But again, it's going to be, we still have a long way till the 28th. And of course, we'll get more action. And then with the coaching carousel, that's not something we've really hit on. But as coaching changes happen, we know that some of these guys remember that if a coach leaves, that they also have the option to enter the portal. And so that will bring a whole new other dynamic. So I'm sure it will even get even busier as we start bowl games, which will start happening here within the next couple days. But again, I think it's kind of finally the initial storm has kindly calmed down, Mark, but I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about this weekend as we see these players take their visits. But again, be on the eyes out for Colorado. I think they're really going to have a big weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the names that we've already mentioned here will commit by Sunday, maybe even Monday at the latest. But I think that's really the school to watch. Prime Time is definitely doing his work out in Boulder. But again, I feel like on Sunday we'll have a lot to talk about. But today's kind of that travel day transition. Everybody's kind of settling in. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about. But again, a daily portal update. Not too much craziness today, thank God for once. But like I said, a lot of guys on the move, and we'll be here to bring you all the action, all the insight.
All right, folks, keep it locked in, subscribe, and we will see you soon for another transfer portal update.